Welcome to Workforce Central, the official podcast of the National Association of Workforce Boards. Stay tuned as we explore the latest resources, thoughts, and trends in workforce development. And now, here's your host, Ron Painter.
Welcome to another edition of Workforce Central. I'm your host, Ron Painter from Washington, D.C., and I am joined today by Phil Blair, who is an owner of 5 Manpower staffing franchises. Phil, I think I'm correct when I say San Diego is where you're based, Riverside, Spokane, Las Vegas, and New Mexico.
Correct. You got it.
All right. Thanks for taking time out to join me. Let me explain to the listeners that Phil is the past chair of the San Diego Workforce Investment Board. He is, and I know this firsthand, he is sought after as a speaker on workforce matters across the country. He owns Manpower franchises, as I mentioned. Phil, about 12,000 employees in the course of a year?
He hired 12 to 14,000 people a year. We have a typical daily payroll of about 3,800 every day.
Wow. That is.
So many of them are on 2 to 6 month to 2-year assignments.
Wow. That is, that's got to keep you a little bit busy, or what do you do in the afternoons?
Give talks. I just came from talking to a veterans group about transitioning into the private sector. But the thing that's interesting about our hiring is we hire literally everything from $9 an hour, very entry-level laborers, up to, I've got a guy making $750 an hour. So we see everything in between. The only thing we don't hire are doctors or nurses, and that's a credentialing issue, and it's not a niche we want to get into. But so we see it all. We see it all coming and going.
Wow, that is crazy. But it also makes it very appropriate for you to be joining us today, because what I want to talk about, and Phil will be, for those of you who are regular listeners, Phil's going to be one of the regular folks that we call on as we look at what's happening in the economy. And so, Phil, right now we're deep into 2016. I just looked at the job openings and labor turnover report, or the JOLT report, which is one of my favorites. And I see in there that the number of vacancies at the end of the month has risen to 5.9 million. Is that something that your business is feeling? That's not going to surprise you, that there is that kind of vacancy demand out there, or that kind of hunt for talent?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't surprise me. It's a very interesting dichotomy of where the jobs are in this market. I do want to take that 5.9 with a grain of salt, because a lot of times we find companies that have posted, I need 10 of these software engineers. And one of our marketing people will call them and say, hey, we can help you with that. And they'll go, oh, is that still up there? No, we changed our mind. We forgot to take it down. So let's say there's 4 million active openings that HR people are actively trying to fill. That is a lot of jobs.
Recently I surveyed local workforce board directors, and the question that I asked them was, compared to this time last year, what is your experience or perception about the degree of difficulty of employers finding talent in your region? I don't know that I was surprised, but entry-level manufacturing, almost 70% of the directors said that was an area. You mentioned advanced IT, well over 70%, but also healthcare. Advanced healthcare occupations showed up, as well as advanced professional services showed up, as directors felt that there was more difficulty finding those positions. Are you finding the same thing? Is that sort of where you're seeing the market for you?
Yeah, I think if you look at your listing, Ron, you'll see that it's lower level, entry level skills, the sort of $11 to $15 an hour. And then it's IT, it's healthcare, it's advanced professional services. So it's at the low spectrum of the pay rate and the very high. So the very high, it's hard to find very skilled niche employees. Our economy and our successful businesses have become so niche oriented that they don't want just any old electrical engineer. I need an electrical engineer that's had experience on onboard ships of this kind to do a project for General Dynamics. So the generalists are having trouble out there. The specific skills, there aren't that many of them, and HR people are having to work harder and now pay more to find them, and they're having to steal them from other jobs.
That's a
trend. So
well, and that's something that I want to follow up. The Census Bureau just released a report that talked about the median income has risen. Now, I talked to Dr. Jerry Paytas the other day, and as part of our kind of catching up on the economy, and Jerry says, "Well, don't read too much into that." But are you seeing this in terms of the wage increases you just mentioned across the board? Are you seeing pressures on wage increasing?
We're seeing it on the entry level and the highly skilled level, because our search division, we do permanent placement also, is having to go out and what we euphemistically call steal people. And people say, "Hey, I'm happy where I am, but you pay me another 15%, I'll move." So then we go back to clients, say, "How bad do you need somebody?" Instead of 100,000, they'll move for 115, and they sort of hold their breath and go, "Okay," because they need the skill set. So we're seeing that upward mobility. Now, that is for people who are willing to change jobs, because companies typically are still saying, "Well, cost of living is very low. It's only went up 1.5%, so we'll give everybody a 2% raise." Well, you're going to start losing people, especially you good people, because they're getting stolen by companies like mine because they're willing to pay more wages.
So the old axiom, if you're not recruiting your employees today, you're the only person who isn't. Is that?
You're right. I tell all my friends in the HR business, you're either a client of mine or you're a source of mine. Which do you want to be? It's sort of like if you're going to go through a divorce with your wife, you go grab the best divorce attorney in town and put him on a retainer so that she can't get him.
I know. I'm glad you offered that advice. And that wasn't coming from me.
This is from a man who's been happily married 45 years.
I know you are.
The three pieces of advice every job searcher needs to understand is, first, you need to know what kind of work you want to do. Sitting down with someone like me, when I say, "Well, how can I help you?" and you say, "I need a job," and I say, "What kind of work are you looking for?" and they say, "I don't know." Well, how do you apply for a job when you don't know what you want to do? So you need to understand what skill sets are, what your education is about, your certificates you have, and most of what you're passionate about. What would excite you to wake up in the morning and go to work? And that's the job you go after, or that's the training you get. Number two, have your resume be a really good sales piece for you, because it's the first thing I'm going to see as an HR professional. Make sure there are no typos in it. Make sure it's laid out well. It's very professionally done. And that it tells a very positive story about you. For example, don't tell me duties. Tell me accomplishments.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, what's the first thing you look at?
The first thing I look at is that have they had the job experience that I need at companies that I respect. Number two, I look at job hoppers to see if they've stayed at least 2 and hopefully 3 or 4 years at their last few jobs. But the most important is when they show up is we hire for attitude and we train for skills. You've got to interview as somebody that I am excited to have join my team. This is somebody I want to work with. They bring energy into the room. There's confidence. I would be proud to have them go out and take my biggest customer to lunch. You walk in very nervous, very tense, sweaty, and you're not going to tell me your story well, and I'm not going to be comfortable having you around. Now, the next message is for anyone out there who has been interviewing for a long time. If they're what we call the long-term unemployed, which means they've been out of work for 6 months, then understand that HR is concerned that you're stale. You've been out of the job market a long time. Nobody's hired you. Why would I hire you? What do they know that I don't know? So you need to overcome that by telling me about all the volunteer work you've been doing, how you're taking classes during your spare time, how you went to Guatemala and built a school for 2 weeks. Tell me you made good use of your time while you had it, so I don't get the impression you've been interviewing for 150 jobs and not getting any of them. And especially important for the long-term unemployed is when you're interviewing with someone like me, make sure you bring the energy into the room. Way too often with the long-term unemployed, we get this attitude of, let's get this interview over with. Nobody's hired me. This is my 50th interview. All I hear is no, no, no. You're going to tell me no. You're not going to hire me. Let me get out of here as fast as I can. Because that comes through.
Let me ask you one more question. So you and I are probably going to sit down again in January. We're going to look at where we've been over the last quarter. As you take out the crystal ball, what indicators are you watching in the next couple of months to give you some indication of where you think the market's going?
We watch both the federal and the local market unemployment rate because they're very specific about construction is up 400 jobs, IT professional is up 800 jobs, something else is down 200 jobs, because that tells us where our market is. So as an applicant, I had to look at this and go, whoa, all the hiring is in the healthcare arena, it's in the high-tech area, it's in the innovative economy. How do I fit in there? And as I said at a talk this morning, that doesn't mean you have to be a doctor or a nurse. That doesn't mean you have to be a coder or a programmer. For every company that has a healthcare employee, a nurse, a front-facing with the client, there are accounting jobs, there's marketing jobs, there's finance jobs, there's all these support jobs. So if healthcare is hiring in your market, go to hospitals, go to clinics, and apply to their finance department, their marketing department, their sales department. Wherever your skill set would fit in with a company, which is the hospital, that has 8 to 28,000 employees. So don't say, oh, I'm not an engineer, I can't apply to a company like Qualcomm. Well, only 20% of Qualcomm's employees are engineers. The other are all support people for those engineers. So that's where you look. I obviously look at where jobs are going away, at least in that quarter if there's a trend. And my marketing people know not to call in those industries. So that's what we look for in trends, and I encourage job seekers to look the same way.
Phil, thanks. You've been listening to Workforce Central, the official podcast of the National Association of Workforce Boards from Washington, D.C. I'm your host, Ron Painter. My guest today has been Phil Blair, the Executive Officer of Manpower for Manpower of San Diego. Phil, thanks for joining us, and we'll catch you again in January to talk about where this market is going. Dr. Paytas, Jerry mentioned the other day that we have a little event between now and the first of the year. Happens the 1st of November, and that may have some bearing on what we're looking at come January. So, Phil, thanks for joining us today. I appreciate it. You've been listening to Workforce Central, the official podcast of the National Association of Workforce Boards. I'm your host, Ron Painter. Thank you, and I hope you join us again soon.